Using duct tape and a keycord, I turned my tap into a shield and myself into a knight in shining armor, fighting the dragons of doom and gloom. In this talk, I'll be talking about three things. One is why we've got every reason to be optimistic. The second is why it is that we are so gloomy these years. And thirdly, what we should be doing and what we should be looking at if we want to turn the situation in a positive direction. Because if we want to make this Earth into an inhabitable place by 9 billion people, we ought to get our act together. And clearly, for the last couple of years, we've made some kind of a mess in our current country. So why do we have every reason to be optimistic? Our children, our future, their reading and arithmetic skills rank 10th in the world. I don't know about you, but I never managed the top half of my class, leave alone the top 10 of my class. So our children in the world are doing very, very good. The second thing is, our economy is the most competitive economy in the world, but for 4 countries. So we are the 5th most competitive country in the world. The year before that, we were 7th. So in the last year, we improved ourselves despite all the bad news. So clearly, we're doing something very, very good. Strange, isn't it? Thirdly, we are the 10th richest country in the world. Our per capita income is only lower than 9 other countries in the world. And those are gas and oil-rich Norway, Qatar, the financial hub of this world, Luxembourg. We earn more money than the Germans do. Did you know that? So we are doing very, very good. And finally, and perhaps most surprisingly, we are the 4th happiest people in the world. Only the Finnish, the Norwegian and the Danish people are happier than we are. Now they've got a rotten climate, and the way our summer is turning out, I think we stand a good chance of a top 3 next year in happiness. So what on earth is going on? We are doing better ever than any people in history, and nowhere in the world people are better off than we are these years. And still we are glum and gloomy. What is wrong with us? Now, one of the things that strikes me in the current debates, and now we get to topic number 2, what is going on in the debates, on television, in politics, on the journals, is a lack of critical self-reflection. Because if we are doing so well, and we still are gloom, the only one that we can blame is ourselves. So this crisis is a crisis about us. It's a crisis about identity, and hence about values and morality. It's not an economic crisis, it's not a financial crisis, it's not a housing crisis. Of course, it's also an economic crisis and a financial crisis and a housing crisis, but it's in particular a crisis about ourselves. We are doing so well and still we cannot get our act together. And what do? We blame others. We've become a fearful people. We are afraid of the Chinese who are going to take over our economy. We are afraid of the African immigrants that are taking our wealth. We are afraid of the Eastern Europeans who are going to steal our jobs, and perhaps even more than that. We are afraid of the Arabs who are going to bomb our cities. All nonsense. We've become so rich, so affluent, that we're preoccupied by keeping what we've got. So we've become narrow-minded. The second thing that strikes me, after critical self-reflection, is a growing distance. A distance between the citizen and the politicians, a distance between the manager and the employees, a distance between the consumer and the products he consumes, a distance between an employee and the products he makes. So we've lost track of what we're doing. And most importantly, we've lost track of our fellow citizens. So complexity and fear, distance and fear make for a difficult world. So how do we know what to do? And now we get to topic number 3. If you want guidance for your actions and you want to be a good person, you basically got 3 options. You say, well, I do whatever gets the best outcome, so the end justifies the means. Now, in our society, in which money is important, we all know where that got us. The bankers took a lead from that. They made huge profits. And now here we are. The second option we've got is just follow the rules. Yeah? And as long as the rule is good, you're doing fine. Now, we all know where that got us. Civil servants, for example, managing housing corporations, assigned themselves big bonuses and salaries because the rules didn't say they were not allowed to. But the problem is the world is too complex to have rules for everything. So the rules and the book rules don't work. So then we've got a third option. We could take a lead from this beardy chap. We call him Aristotle, old guy, and 2,500 years ago he came up with the concept of virtue. He already understood that the world is too complex to fit it into rules. He said, the end justifies the mean doesn't work for me. He said, what we want is virtuous people. And a virtue is something like courage, like wisdom, all the things that we in our private lives value. Now, the good thing about virtues is it takes time to acquire. You don't take a book and say, okay, I ought to do this. You don't look for the consequences, but it's hard work. A virtue is acquired over time, takes time, hard work, and a lot of dialogue with your fellows. It doesn't tell us exactly how to act, but the virtue will make you more adaptable to a complex and changing world. And what we ought to do as a people is think about who and what we want to be and what are those virtues that are important to us, like creativity, like wisdom, like courage, to stand up in the current difficulties. And I say that if we find and define the right virtues amongst ourselves, together with all the good things like we already have, reading skills, arithmetic skills, a competitive economy, a lot of income, and a lot of happy people, then we can make a meaningful contribution to an Earth with 9 billion people. And the thing to start is to define what we think is important in our lives. And what are we governed by today? It's the inflation rate, it's the debt ratio. But if you are to choose between the health of your child and some 10% extra income, you don't need 2 seconds to make a decision. If you have a chance to say, will I be miserable for the rest of my life, but I can drive a big car, or be happy and have a smaller car, you know what to choose. But still, we manage ourselves based on these narrowly minded economic indicators. So what we should change is first start to govern ourselves by the things that we think is important based on the virtues that we have. And then we can make a meaningful contribution to an Earth inhabited by 9 billion people. If you're interested, have a look at the Optimistic Manifesto that I started writing a couple of years ago. It's on the site. You can follow it by Twitter or on Facebook and make a meaningful contribution to this project and thereby help my project again. Thank you very much for that. Enjoy your ride and we'll be in touch. Take care.
Thank you very much.